Things.
Sorry.
My idea for my FMP is to make a podcast based on health, fitness and sort of general well-being and lifestyle. And I decided to choose that idea because health and fitness is one of my personal interests. So I think it's better to work on something that you have a genuine interest in. It's just more enjoyable and you'll probably produce a better piece of work from it. And I think that by doing a podcast, it's a good way to engage younger people, which will be my audience, because you can access that online and predominantly on your phone. Because at first I was thinking of maybe doing an interactive book or some sort of print book based on a similar topic. But then I realised from my research on my FMP last year with the Bath Chronicle, it was apparent that being online is really engaging to young people, and everyone has a phone, so I think having that as a main concept is probably a good idea. When I was looking into what I should do for my podcast, I conducted a little interview with a girl from my town who has a blog and a YouTube channel based on health, fitness and lifestyle, and she thinks that the information I should sort of share on my podcast should be realistic information for young people, as there's a lot of sort of fads and things like that out there at the moment and it's just unrealistic. So I want to tackle it from a different angle rather than saying you must be fit, you must be healthy, like all of that sort of stuff. And Charlotte, the girl that I interviewed, said that she gets most of her inspiration for health and fitness from YouTube and reading blogs, etc. So it goes to show that having a podcast available online and mobile would be a good area to use. But a podcast is like a YouTube video in some ways, but just without the visual. So I thought that it would be good to have, as people can actually listen to it whilst working out or whilst preparing their dinner, or even if they're just trying to fall asleep, just have it playing in their ears or something without actually having the visual to focus on. So it's easier to listen to. I also want to kind of build a brand behind the podcast, sort of designing logos and things like that. And I had the idea that I've discussed with Shari, maybe having it on an app that people can engage, sort of ask questions, post topics and discussions that they'd like to be discussed in the next episode, or have it on a blog. So be similar to the app really, could even be both. I need to explore that. And say if I mention a recipe in the podcast, I would write out the recipe on the blog, so it's easier written down for the audience. As part of my research, I looked at some fitness blogs online, and they're all very sort of fresh and have lots of images and minimal text, kind of bullet points, because that's easier to read, I suppose, less text. And I would like mine to be like that, just including the key information, and then there would be the podcast on, like, embedded into the blog that you can listen to. So the podcast will include sort of workout ideas, hopefully some like background music, because as I was listening to some fitness-based podcasts, they just sort of had music running through the background. I guess it just makes it sound more exciting. I want to include healthy eating tips as well, and I'd like some interviews and discussions with maybe someone that works at a gym or someone that's interested in health and fitness really. And then for the brand, I want to make a logo, either the blog or app, that will include the some write-ups of things that maybe wouldn't be so clear from the podcast, and discussions on those blogs and links to places or resources I might have mentioned in the podcast. So what I actually feel that I need to do to make this work is I need to definitely do some research into how to build an app or site, and obviously Steve and Shari have experience with those, so they can help me with that. And I need to explore my design ideas with the logo and things, just hand drawing, sketching thumbnails and things, and doing mock-ups on the computer, and experimenting, doing little focus groups, and just questioning people on which one they feel works best and represents the brand best. I also need to write the content, and as I'm interested in health and fitness, I have a lot of knowledge in that anyway, so most of my research was done in this research project. I shouldn't have to do too much research into the content for my FMP. I do, however, need to conduct interviews for the content of my podcast, and I need to practice with equipment for recording and editing my podcast, as that's not really anything I've done before. And I want to also do some research into what other people want to hear, because obviously I've got my knowledge, but I don't know if that's of interest to other people, so I'd like to conduct some sort of primary research as to what people want to hear, and I think that's all.
Cool. Thank you very much, Neve. All right, sounds interesting. Sounds like you've kind of looked into different podcasts and what's already out there on the market or what's already existing. You mentioned that you looked at previous research from your FMP last year, thinking about audience and a younger audience or demographic. Do you have any of that embedded in your research that you've done, or have you got it documented anywhere? Because it would be nice.
Yeah, I've got it obviously on my
from
drive
last
from last
year,
but maybe I could put a link to it.
It might be an idea just to embed it, to just show us that you're thinking about work, previous work. It's good that you've done it, but yeah, it might be nice to just, if you've got some statistics or some research that you did last year. You mentioned that you looked at the difference between podcast, or you said about the difference between podcasts and YouTube. Have you done research into that, or in a blog post just explaining?
Yeah, I've explained it.
Okay, fab. I really like the idea of branding, and it's clear that you know what you're going to do for the next steps. How do you think you might make it slightly different? So if there's some that are already existing out there, how do you think it might be?
I think just making it a bit more fresh and engaging, because a couple of the ones that I was listening to, it was like a lot of it just basically talking throughout on one topic.
Okay.
So that's why, and
to have
I guess that
snippets.
could be interesting, like if there was going to be a different topic for each episode, but it is a bit long to just listen to, so there would be different sort of themes within the podcast that would last for like a few minutes each or something.
Great.
Just to make it a bit more.
And if you found some like that, maybe just critique them and say this, this is where, or how I do it slightly differently. And you said about linking to resources, which I thought was a nice touch as well. So, cool. Anybody got any feedback from me? Seb, go for it.
With the music that you said you wanted to add in the back, did you do any background research on what type it might be, or how upbeat it is, how slow it is, or what instruments are used, or?
Well, it'll definitely be upbeat, because the podcast's meant to be motivational and to do with fitness and like getting you going. So yeah, that's the sort of music I want, and I need to look into sort of copyright and royalties and stuff like that.
Toby?
Yeah, I was going to say on the music front, like, have you thought of maybe going to like a local band or someone and having them write like a little jingle or something which goes along with the podcast?
Yeah, I could quite possibly do that, because obviously there's a music department here. So.
Yeah, and you were talking about how to make it slightly more interesting if you had like your own jingle or something along with it. Yeah. Steve. Oh, Brian, go for it.
You got quite on.
Yeah, nice. I'm just shocked that you can close.
Oh, okay. I'll give you one time. No, I was just going to say, it's actually good to see something that I would genuinely use, because there's a lot of people who come up with ideas for podcasts and they just, it's hard to say, they don't have much personality to it, but even just the way you've laid that out, I can see that you've actually got a construct to what you're doing. It's not just, some crap you've thrown together, you actually know what you want to do, and you can add your own personal touch to it, which is lacking in a lot of podcasts I've listened to. So that's where you're coming from.
How long is this going to run for? How long is each individual podcast?
Each individual podcast I think will probably be about 15 minutes.
Okay. Have you researched an optimum time?
I
The
haven't.
reason I'm asking
Yeah,
is you
no.
said this is going to be something while you're doing a workout.
Yeah.
Now, you can appreciate that I've done about 3 workouts in my entire life, so I'm not a good person to actually judge this, but I would have thought there would be an optimum time for that, yeah?
Yeah.
Because I would have thought you don't want to be loading up the next podcast because it's run out 5 minutes into your treadmill or whatever, yeah?
Yeah.
Maybe you do it for just like small like ab workouts or like little.
Yeah,
or
that's
clear
what I
on
was
what,
thinking. Like
rather than
sort
like a
of-
long like
yeah, because
30,
they're-
40 minutes.
some podcasts are like an hour long.
Yeah.
And just realistically, I don't really think I'll be able to.
Yeah.
You get like 4 guests on.
Go on then.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, when I'm in the gym, which is very rare, but when I am, I probably wouldn't listen to people talking, I listen to music.
Yeah.
So what makes the people talking motivational enough to actually be able to keep pushing or keep running?
Well, I watch quite a lot of YouTube videos and stuff on health and fitness, and a couple of those people that I watch, they've sort of done videos on tips for wanting to work out and like tips for running and making it more pleasant and stuff. And a couple of them have said that if you've tried listening to music and that doesn't really kind of get you going, it's sometimes nice to actually just have like a different sound going on and like feeding you information. Say people that don't have time to read, like they might have to choose either their free time, they would have to choose to sit down and read a book or go out for a run. They can listen to the podcast whilst running and to like get the information that they would have read from a book. So it's like killing 2 birds with 1 stone, really.
It does feel to me that you get